Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, Notre Dame fans, wherever you are, whenever you are watching or listening to this show. Just thank you so much for making us a part of your day. I'm Mike Singer, and usually I'm on the other side of the screen, so I'm going to go ahead and flip it over there. Eric, how are you doing, my friend? How's everything on your end? Great couple of questions in the press.
Suddenly,
Great
I'm
couple
doing
questions
great.
in the press conference, sir. It's good to be back in covering press conferences, I'm sure.
It was great. It was really good to get past the speculation and really start defining some of the things that we're going to see in spring practice. And I mean, getting the full injury report was super helpful, and just weaving all that together was great. I'm ready. And the snow's starting to melt today in South Bend.
Yeah, if you watched our video with Jack Sobel and Tyler Horka today, the boy looked cold.
He's from Texas, though.
So yeah, you guys go make sure you watch that video. Horka and Sobel recapped the three press conferences today. Although the middle one, Rob Hunt's, was not on YouTube. I don't know if they had a technical issue.
Yes.
Technical issue? That was the word?
Yes.
Okay. So there was some injury stuff there, but that's a great reason to be on blueandgold.com because we were continuing the updates there as we had 4 of our writers in the room and asking questions. We got Ghost of Endy's in here. Light is here. K-Mac, of course, is in here. Hope you all are doing very well. If Brian Kelly went on a radio show and started talking about Notre Dame, we wouldn't have covered it this week. We had to last week because there wasn't nothing to talk about. But this week, we have plenty of things to get to. So I was kind of joking.
Well, I know Brian Kelly sat in front of Charlie Weiss at the service the other day. I do know that.
And I do want to ask you a little bit about the interviews in the Lou Holtz funeral, because I was in Colorado from Thursday and I just got back last night, and it wasn't a vacation. It was I think I said this on the show last week. I was still working because I needed an out if I needed an out. You know what I mean? And I did use it a couple of times. Like, man, got a show or but it was mostly a good time with the in-laws. But I'm definitely happy to be back.
Cool.
But there was a reason I brought that up, and I don't even remember, Eric.
Maybe with
the funeral. Yeah, I didn't get to see a ton. I was chasing my daughter around the cabin for 4 days straight, making sure she wasn't breaking anything. So I just saw some tweets here and there. So I really want to hear from you about that. Before we dive into today's show, we are sponsored by Augie's Locker Room, and we know you love Notre Dame memorabilia and unique one-of-a-kind Fighting Irish items, and you can find it at one place, and it is Augie's Locker Room. Look at this Golden Tate Notre Dame football baseball poster sign. This is sweet for less than $200. I mean, this is new. I feel like since we did this show last week, Augie's always getting new stuff in. Jerome Bettis signed Snowball photo with ticket copy. I mean, this is sweet. Bettis football signed, mini helmet signed by Bettis. Kyron, like, I feel like these things are very reasonably priced as well. Like, I mean, and it's just so unique. I mean, what I'm saying right here is just from the heart. It's not a part of the ad read. Just like, man, I love the stuff that Augie gets in. So make sure you go to augieslockerroom.com and toggle the online store. And you also can just go in person at 1733 North Ironwood Drive in South Bend, just across the street from campus. Give them a call, 574-277-6363. We're talking Notre Dame Stadium pieces, jerseys, helmets, autographs, one-of-a-kind Rockney items, exclusive Joe Montana signed items, and famous sculptor Jerry McKenna's replicas of the bronze statues from around the stadium. Give them a call, 574-277-6363. And you guys do this a lot, and I appreciate it. You let them know that Mike Singer sent you, so please do. If you talk to Augie, if you go in the store, say Mike Singer from Blue and Gold sent me.
I will do that. And I also like one thing that I really like about Augie is you're getting authentic stuff.
Yes.
And you can trust him, and that's really important in today's online retail stuff, because there's a lot of fake stuff out there.
Ghost of Endy says, I don't have money for the stuff there. Listen, man, for all this is important for all the stuff there, because you easily could go in and you could spend something for you just buy something for a few bucks, or you could drop 10 grand on this Lou Holtz award. Do you know anything about this, Lou? Lou. Eric,
tell me what the award is. The Lou Holtz
College Coach of the Year.
Wow.
What? Personally owned with letter of authenticity. This is the actual cool. the Timmy Award. I don't know if I'm like committing a crime by not knowing what this award is. But awarded in 1988, this prestigious trophy is honored excellence in college football. Huh. That's wild.
Yeah.
Personally owned by Lou Holtz. This is the actual award for him being named a Coach of the Year in 1988. No wonder. This is incredible. You want to go in on it together? And I'll keep it at my house.
Only if we can change it to Lou Holtz Coach of the Year, advised by Eric Hansen.
Let's go on. Let's go in on it together.
That was my first year in the Notre Dame market. Was
that's 1988. Right. Not a bad year. Not a bad year. Mm-hmm. We can keep it at my house, and then anytime I go to South Bend, you can see it, and then it'll come back to me. That sounds good. Although I don't think I'd take it on a plane. But Eric, let's get into the nuts and bolts of the show here.
Okay.
Sorry for folks watching on YouTube. You got the shadow of Horka's phone taking a picture of this availability update, but a lot of guys out for spring. I'll read it quickly for folks listening to this. Folks listening to this as a podcast, excuse me. We always get a few thousand of those. So limited activity: Drake Bowen, Madden Framo, and Kanu Kia, 3 linebackers, and then freshman offensive lineman Tyrell Merrill and running back Aeneas Williams. So that's limited activity for this spring, which, Bowen doesn't need to practice, so that one's fine. Okay, out for spring. A lot of true freshmen on here. Kari Adams, the corner, Jacoby Clapper, the linebacker, Javian Osborne, the running back, Braden Robinson, receiver, and that's it for the true freshmen. Okay, then you have Craig recovering from an ACL, Jagusah, which we'll spend some time on here in a minute, Quincy Porter, Eric, we thought maybe he'd be limited, but he is out with a left patella injury. Gordy Solfstead, left shoulder labrum, he's out for the spring. Kingston and Kingston Villiamoasa, the linebacker, and of course Keedron Young, running back, both right ACLs. So let's start with Jagusah. JP says, really doubting Jags ever makes it back at this point. Do you buy that? What was said about him in the press conferences today, sir?
I wrote a column about it. I am not buying that he's done. I think this is the first time that we've been able to talk to Rob Hunt about this, and it matches up with the intel that I've gotten, and it's actually pretty optimistic. Now, what's not optimistic is we don't know what the timeline is. But I asked Rob Hunt, we got to ask 4 questions. I got to ask 2 of them to Rob Hunt. And one of them was, is this a matter of when or is it a matter of if? And he was pretty convicted this is a matter of when. He had his 6th surgery related to that UTV accident today.
6? I thought it was 5th.
6? It was, yeah, this is the 6th. He said there had been 4 surgeries right after, and he took us through that, and then this is number 6 today.
What the mental toll must be for that young man, Eric.
Exactly, and that's what we talked about, the mental side of this. And then if we want to dive into this now, I will, because this is what the points I made in my column. You look at his history, and he's nothing but heart. His senior year at Allendale High School in Rock Island, they sucked. They didn't come within 40 points of anybody their last 6 games of the year, except for a game they didn't have enough guys to play, and they forfeited. So that was a 2-0 game. he played both ways with a torn PCL and a torn ACL when his team had nothing to gain. So that shows you something. Then he goes out for wrestling with the same injuries, trying to defend his state championship in the heavyweight division. He couldn't cut weight, and that's when they discovered the tears. He thought he just had a sore hammy. And so then what does he do? Well, during his rehab, he drives over and meets Joe Rudolph, who was the new offensive line coach, watches film with him. He helps out at a middle school. He has a part-time job as an auto detailer. I mean, and you think about how he came back from his other injuries that he's had. Yes, he hasn't had great luck with injuries, but you know what he has had good luck with is how much drive there is to be great. And I think that's still inside of him. I would not give up on him. I think it's easy to bet against him. It's foolish to bet against him. So that I'm going to take that to the bank. I think that there's going to be one more good chapter, at least for Charles Jagusah. And we'll see. I could be wrong. Kevin Bauman was a guy that just continuously had injuries, battled like heck, but it wasn't in the cards for him. I do think it's in the cards for Charles Jagusah.
Going back to him in high school, just the fact that he stayed at that school.
Yeah.
You would have seen other top. I mean, it's a 5-star recruit, Jagusah.
Right.
For much of that 23 cycle, he was the number one offensive tackle by on 3. And it's like, all right, I'm sure IMG was calling, he could have done something else. Gone to one of those big football factory kind of places, but he didn't, and he wanted to stay at his school. So rooting for the kid. We don't have all of the details about the UTV thing, and and that's obviously that was very unfortunate kind of unforced error, to use a tennis term, but it happened, and I'm sure he's learned a ton from that. It's just that mental toll, but kind of rambling, but I'm with you. I'd bet on him based on a lot of things you just said. And then when you talk to sources around the program, and I'm writing an intel piece up tomorrow, Eric, talked to you a little bit about it before the start of the show. There's going to be a note on Charles in there, and I think it's pretty cool to read what you guys will see in that article tomorrow. So check it out, blueandgold.com. You will have to subscribe, and you can. This is a great offer, Eric. New subscribers to blueandgold.com get 50% off the first year of an annual subscription. I mean,
and there's so much going on right now.
So much going on. One of Marcus Freeman's biggest recruiting weekends, since he became head coach, is on Saturday. And I mean, just think about everything that you're going to get in that year at 50% off. That's spring practice coverage, spring recruiting, summer recruiting, fall camp coverage, all the observations that come with that, football season, signing day, and then all of the reporting on recruiting, and and then leading up to spring next year. I mean, this is a fantastic time to sign up. So would definitely recommend folks do that. And I do recommend folks hit the thumbs up on this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel at Blue and Gold as well. Eric, was there anything else on the Jagusah fronts that you'd like to discuss?
Rob Hunt went through all the different surgeries, and if you want those details, you can read the story. I think what led to so many of the setbacks had to do with how much debris got into that wound. I mean, the bone was, I'm sorry, it's the left one. The bone was broken all the way through. It wasn't just a crack. And there was all kinds of dirt and debris that got in. And he mentioned the surgeon spent 2.5 hours trying to clean that out before they even addressed the bone break.
All right.
During the first surgery. I'm
squeamish. This is
and there were a lot of infections, which led to a lot of other problems, and including the bone healing properly. This is the first time we've really had momentum with the bone healing properly. And so when does that, turn around? The other thing I want to talk about, his ceiling. I talked to Tom Lemming about this when Charles was getting ready to enroll at Notre Dame. And he said, of Quentin Nelson, Ronnie Stanley, and Mike McGlinchey. He was at the level of Quentin Nelson and Ronnie Stanley and ahead of McGlinchey coming out of high school. He felt like he could be as good or better than those guys. Now, this is before any of the other injuries happened, the torn pectoral muscle that affected 2024 or the UTV accident. But that's what kind of ceiling he is. I still think he's the best tackle on the roster. He's the best guard on the roster. And if you gave him a shot at it, he'd be the best center on the roster. He's that good. So he's worth having faith in because he's going to put the work in to come back if it's possible. That's all I have to say. Slam.
Go off, King. I completely agree. He is a freak show first round talent if he can get healthy. Let's look. I mean, is there anything to Eric? I mean, people are going to look at all the true freshmen. Is there, to kind of preview a segment later, is that something or nothing? That is it coincidence, or these guys getting to Notre Dame and they're getting run into the ground right away?
So what a lot of the freshman stuff were existing injuries from high school. Like Braden Robinson was a ACL tear in high school. When Kari Adams showed up, they did a physical his first day there, and they're like, "Whoa, you got a torn labrum and a unstable." Oh yeah,
that's
shoulder.
Right. I forgot about that. He posted it on Instagram, but we were talking like, what happened here?
Right. And so what they did was they said, okay, you're going to miss spring practice whether you have surgery now or whether you have it in March or end of February. I think it was early March is when he had it. So they said, here's what we'll do. We'll have you go through all the winter workouts so you can get your work in, so you can go to the football school and learn things and condition your body. And then we'll do this right before spring practice. You won't miss very much class time. And then you'll miss spring practice, but you would have anyways.
Right.
But the thing is, then he's going to be ready in the summer. He's going to be full go at some point in the summer. He's going to be ready, they think, by fall camp at least. And so that's why the timing went that way. And I think, I don't know that there was any of these. There might have been one, maybe Merrill might have been the one that got injured, but there's very few. Maybe one of the freshmen got hurt. Then there's also 3 that weren't on here. They're just guys that will be half speed the first weekend, and that's Leonard Moore had a hamstring tweak. I think it was Leonard Moore, Jaden Greathouse, and Chris Tarrick. They're all going to be fine by next week, 100%, and going through everything.
That's good. That's good to know on Kari. That was unbeknownst to me. Did I just use that correctly?
You did.
Huh. All right. There's a USF journalism degree. But no, on Adams, that's a 5-star corner. That's someone who you could use this year. So that's good to know.
He's counting on it too. I mean, and having interviewed him, he's confident that he's ready. Now, whether the situation presents itself or not, but he does not lack confidence, nor does he lack the work ethic to make that confidence stand up. It's really interesting talking to him, and he looks the part. He walks in, he's long, he's athletic, and he's funny. I like him.
Let's go quickly through Porter, Kingston, and Kedron. What are your thoughts on their returns or what has been said today?
Let's take the 2 ACLs. That's Kedron and Kingston Viliamu-Asa. Really encouraging timelines for both of those ACL tears. They feel like Kedron Young may be ready on the pace that he's at, that he may be ready to be full go in the summertime doing everything. And that would make him a go for all of training camp. Kingston, given that fact that this is his second ACL tear, they were really encouraged. They think the only thing that's skittish is the strength building part of it with the second ACL tear, but they also are very optimistic that he'll be back for fall. When you think about ACL, sometimes that's a year rehab. And so we'll see if they're as optimistic in August as they are right now.
Right.
But things are going well in that. And who was the other one that you mentioned?
Quincy Porter, Ohio
Quincy
State
Porter.
receiver.
Quincy he had a knee cleanup right when he jumped in the portal. So we're talking in January. He's going to miss all of spring practice, but they say full go summer, full go fall camp.
So with like a Kingston, like would it be nice for him to do spring ball? Obviously. But like I said earlier, for Drake Bowen's like some of these guys, Leonard Moore, Drake Bowen, these vets, it's okay. Take it easy in the spring. Kingston, I would throw in there too. Like just get yourself ready. But for Kedron and more so Porter, since Porter's such he's new, right? We don't know as much about him.
Right.
How much do you think him missing spring could hurt his chances to start at Notre Dame? Zero.
I don't think it'll hurt his chances at all because I think he'll show it in the summer and in the fall. I don't think Micah Gilbert is going to jump him. I think he's too talented. As long as he doesn't have a physical setback, I think he is a guy that they're very excited about. And I think he's got the work ethic. Again, he's a guy I personally have interviewed, really impressed with him, impressed with the people, or impressed with him from people that we've spoken to during his Ohio State time. I don't think it's going to affect him at all. Now, will he have to work to play catch up with CJ Carr in chemistry? Yeah, he's going to. But I think that Quincy Porter is going to be ready to roll. Now, if they had said, we're not sure when in August he's going to get back, then it's getting a little bit more ticklish. But again, they've got 14 receivers.
Yeah.
I think but there's nobody on the roster quite like him. I mean, that's 6'4". He's not Malachi Fields filled out, but he at some point will be.
Yeah, it just depends on when he gets back. If it's like if he's back to 80, and what was the injury again? It was left patella.
Yeah, it was a knee, and so they're thinking at the beginning of the summer that he would be. I can pull up the quote here, but
okay,
beginning of summer. Let me find him.
Yeah, so if it's beginning of summer, you still got a couple. You got several weeks to get that working, and you could definitely see something, Eric, where CJ Carr's down in Mobile or wherever, and he's hanging out, or Fairhope. And
so here's what Rob Hunt said on it.
Okay.
He had surgery as he entered into the portal. He's about 10 weeks in and beginning his return to play process, along with his rehab side of things. So he'll miss spring, but we'll have a full summer of activity and expect him to be full for the fall camp.
Yeah. So I'm not worried about the chemistry. Like I was saying, I'm sure CJ and a bunch of the receivers are going to go down to Alabama and train with Phillip Rivers and whatever that they've done before, and they'll be fine and they'll get chemistry. I'm not too worried about it. So
one thing that is really interesting as you look at this collectively is you start to see a lot of running backs not being full go for spring. So you have Aeneas Williams with that elbow injury he's going to be in a red jersey, so he's not going to have contact. Kedron Young not in spring practice. Javian Osborne not in spring practice. You're starting to run out of numbers there. And so they had some walk-on tryouts, and they have some walk-on running backs. Corny Southall mentioned his son Xavier has moved from wide receiver to running back for the spring and perhaps beyond to help with the numbers there as well. So it's, you're low on numbers for the spring at running back.
Yeah, that was something I want to talk to you about. And Jack Sobel tweeted this. I have it up on the screen. 2 positions where Notre Dame will be very thin in the spring due to injuries is linebacker and running back. Freeman said the linebackers who remain will get more reps at running back. The Irish had walk-on tryouts and added a couple. And like you said, Xavier Southall moved to running back. What do you think? Look, at linebacker, and I will touch on this in my article tomorrow that I teased earlier. So I'll go into that then. So I'm not going to do that now. But again, Drake Bowen, Kingston, you have some staples: Snead, Osbury. Running backs wide open though.
Yeah.
So linebacker might be thin in the spring, but you kind of know what it's going to be in the fall.
Right. Right.
Running back, though, if Aeneas, what was he? Was he among the limited? No, yeah. So Aeneas is
Yeah.
right elbow limited activity. So it's like, how limited is he going to be? Like it seems Kedron's out, Osborne's out. You have Aeneas is limited, and then you have Nolan James Jr. and Jonas Walton fully
Yeah.
available. So it's fascinating. Like, how much could the spring dictate what happens at the running back position come fall?
Well, the one thing that we know is that Marcus Freeman has really, in past years, when there have been guys not in the spring, like they haven't enrolled yet, it hasn't kept them off the field in the fall if they're good enough. But you would think that Walton is going to have a leg up on Osborne, for example, and they're going to know everything they need to know about Nolan James Jr. He's going to have an opportunity to earn trust. And I think those are important. But by the same token, Aeneas Williams has enough of a sample size and has been super impressive in that sample size that I still think he's number one going into fall camp. And Kedron Young to me is the wild card because I think his body is different than everybody else's. Plus, he has the speed to go with that big body. And I think if he's the guy that I think he is, they're going to fall in love with him. I don't think he's going to be a running back 1, but I think he could be 2 or 1A. I think he's fascinating.
Yeah, I agree with you, sir. A couple other things that Marcus Freeman talked about a lot that I found interesting. Quarterback 2 came up a good bit from the media, and Freeman didn't shy away from talking about it. Tweet from Jack Sobel. Freeman, wrong page. Freeman clarified that Notre Dame has to name a backup quarterback, and it'll be a 3-way battle between Blake Hebert, Noah Grubbs, and Teddy Gerard. Gerard, of course, arriving in June. However, quotes, that doesn't mean you're going to be the starter next year. So very much like we saw with CJ Carr after his true freshman season, he was QB4, and then the next year he's QB1. If you're QB2, that does not mean you're QB1 next year. It's not. That's not how it works. Steve Angeli was QB2 in the season Notre Dame made it to the national title game, and then 3 months later he's hitting the portal. It's just not how it works. You're right. You just don't move up just because someone graduates. It's not a video game like that, right? So, I mean,
it's not the circle of life.
Here's something else. So this is obviously a discussion, assuming, and the questions were kind of implying that if Carr goes, right, if Carr goes to the NFL after this upcoming season, then what will it look like next year? I'm honestly, Eric, I was surprised that he even talked about this. I could have seen him say something about uncertain future, and I'm worried about right now. I was surprised he even spoke about the possibility of taking a portal quarterback next year. Like he gave it the time of day. I was a little surprised.
He was, and I actually think the person that asked the question maybe thought they could sneak in a veteran quarterback in the spring period, but there is no portal period in the spring. And it sounds like they will crack down on those blind transfers, according to Pete Nakos, our On3 Insider, National Insider, who was on our podcast talking about this, that the NCAA is aiming to have some pretty big penalties if teams do that.
Would Spencer Porath have fit into that?
Yes, according to Pete, he would have. Even though he did it within the portal dates, he did not enter the portal. And so now they're not going to retroactively go back and say, okay, everybody that did this, but they could not get away with it in the spring if they have these penalties in place.
Got it. Okay. That makes sense.
And Pete thinks if they don't have the penalties in place, it'll happen all over the place.
Yeah. Yeah. Now it's like, what's the point of the portal if you can just go whenever you want? But any other thoughts on quarterback 2?
I thought that it was interesting. I think they had their chance to add in January and they turned that card down. and said, we feel like we have not only our number 2 quarterback on the roster, but the future starter. Now, again, if guys don't develop the way that they think they will, or if there's an injury, they can go to the portal, but their intention is to grow the quarterbacks that they've been recruiting, and that would be the route that they go. And just from the insiders that I've talked to, I do think they're sincere in thinking that the next starting quarterback is already on the roster.
So Eric, Freeman has talked about wanting to build through high school recruiting at the quarterback position.
In every position, really, if you can do it.
If you're right. But honing in on focusing on quarterback, why do you think that is? Like, I can kind of see, I understand where Freeman's coming from, but also at the other side of this coin, it's like, what if you can have a 1-year rental and he's just better? Like, you could have gone with Steve Angeli, would have been a fine option, right? I mean, I'm sure Steve Angeli would have won a lot of games, but you go out and get Riley Leonard, and now you're a team that makes it to the national championship game. So I feel like he wants to do it, but it's not to, and I guess I'm answering my own question. Like, he would like to, but not to the detriment of his team.
Well, I think an advantage of it, let's look at this year. Notre Dame will have a starting quarterback returning for the first time since 2020. Last time Notre Dame had a quarterback returning from one year to the next was Ian Book, and it was actually his 3rd year as a starter. And they made it to the 4-team college football playoff with that quarterback. And I think Marcus talked today about how advantageous that is to have that guy in place. And so I also think as long as Gino Guidugli is your quarterback's coach and Mike Denbrock is your offensive coordinator, you've got 2 of the best QB developers on the planet developing your quarterbacks. And it's a great selling tool for recruits. Why not do it? I think there's some economics in it too. Now, obviously, as your quarterback gets better, you're going to have to pay, but a high school 5-star quarterback, in terms of what you're paying in NIL and that kind of stuff and the rev share stuff is more cost effective than going out and getting a portal guy from another school.
Yeah. I had a couple texts come in, so I missed the beginning part of what you were saying, so I apologize if I'm repeating you, but another element is, Freeman we've talked about this a ton in the offseason. Freeman talked about today, like having returning coordinators, having a returning starting quarterback. There's something to the continuity as well, in that you want to put your reps into these guys, and it's, you're gonna have Noah Grubbs take a lot of snaps this spring, and Blake Hebert take a lot of snaps. Like, you want to invest those snaps into those guys rather than, if you bring in Braden Atkinson, who Notre Dame looked at from Mercer, it's like now you're splitting it, this big QB2 battle. Like, I think there's like how could we have the most effective time? And Freeman talked about that as well today. Like, time, coaches want all the time, and you want your time to be spent well. And I think that's another part too, is wanting to invest the time into the quarterbacks that they have. Like, is it worth it? Like, is this guy coming in better than what we have? Like, if you put Blake Hebert at Mercer last year as a true freshman, we have done the same thing as Braden Atkinson. Probably, maybe, Noah Grubbs might have been able to do the same thing at an FCS level as a true freshman. So I think that's kind of how you, or part of how you look at it. So,
okay.
Eric, let's talk about March matchups coming up with BetMGM. If they score the most points, you'll score bonus bets for each round of March matchups. You have the opportunity to predict which team will score the most points, and if you're correct, you'll win a share of bonus bets with BetMGM. Here's how to get the offer in 3 easy steps. Enter the March Matchups $500,000 pick'em free-to-play game. Pick which team you think will score the most points in any round of the tournament, And if the team you selected scores the most points that round, you win a share of bonus bets. So check it out at BetMGM. Go to their website, download the app, and make this March legendary. Eric, we've been speculating for a couple months now about the possibility of Christian Gray, and maybe more than speculation. Maybe we, had kind of heard that. Wink, wink. Marcus Freeman calls Christian Gray. This tweet from Tyler Horka. Marcus Freeman calls Christian Gray a viable option at nickel. He says Gray will rotate in there with Dallas Golden while also still playing some outside. And Horka added, it also sounds like transfers DJ McKinney and Jaden Sanders have an opportunity to play a bunch of outside with Leonard Moore. Now, McKinney, if I remember this correctly, I reported it a couple months ago, but I don't remember off the top of my head. McKinney's at Notre Dame, but he is a Bo Collins situation where he's living in South Bend and he's around the team, but he's still finishing up classes at Colorado. And I'm pretty sure that's what Bo Collins did for Clemson. And then Jaden Sanders, the Michigan transfer, is taking part in spring ball. So what do you think about the nickel spot? What did we learn today?
Well, that was actually my question to Marcus Freeman, was about Christian Gray. Yes, it felt like he had a lot of conviction about his thoughts. I don't think he's going into this as this is an experiment and we'll see if it works. I think they're pretty convinced that it will work and that Dallas Golden will also be there. I feel like Marcus sensed that they need to have more depth there. They need to have another person there. Could it be somebody like Aiden Pouncey? Could it be one of the safeties like a Nick Reddish? And so I think that's also a priority, but I'm really curious to see what Christian Gray looks like playing the nickel, and if that kind of rejuvenates him. When you look at his Pro Football Focus season grade from last year, of the guys that played more than 100 snaps, he was second to last in terms of a season score. Carson Hobbs, who played the nickel, was the lowest score. And it was lower than Christian Gray had played at the year before. Now, he had some up moments, but he had a lot of downs too. And it felt like some of the best football that he played last year was when Leonard Moore was out and he flipped over to the boundary side. Right. So maybe a new change of scenery, change of role will rejuvenate him and bring some consistency. But if it doesn't, Notre Dame needs to have other alternatives there, because we all know how much that position can affect a singular Miami game last year. You think about the Miami game in 2026 with Malachi Toney, and you think about the Texas A&M game where they got chewed up at nickel as well.
Yeah.
So it can affect that position. I mean, a lot of positions, but that position can affect people. Just because you have this great secondary, if there's a soft spot in it, teams are going to pick on that soft spot until you prove that you can deal with it.
Yeah, folks, please do hit the thumbs up on this video. Subscribe to the Blue and Gold YouTube channel for more content. I don't know. I don't know what is going to happen at that position. Does Christian Gray start at nickel and then you do get McKinney or Sanders on the outside, or does Dallas Golden start at nickel and then Christian Gray is the start on the outside? I don't know. But I feel like even if Notre Dame doesn't have great depth, among the corners and nickels this spring, I think they do this fall. Leonard Moore will be fully healthy. You get McKinney in there. I think there's a lot of reason to be excited about your outside corners and your nickel.
Jaden Sanders just intrigues me why they went and got him, but beyond just getting a number, because you think, wow, Mark Zachary is this really great up and coming corner. Dallas Golden's an up and coming corner. You look
26
at the
class. Hell yeah.
Why do they need a guy that's in the same class as Zachary and Golden to be on this team? And so they must have seen something in Jaden Sanders that they really, really liked.
Yeah.
Because he's not just a depth piece. He's a guy that it'll be really fun to watch what he does in the spring.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. And he played a lot as a true freshman in Michigan. JP says, do you see more of Leonard Moore following the best receiver happening this season? I hope so. If like it does kind of show your hand unless you can disguise it well of you're playing man, right? But
right.
I mean, Notre Dame plays so much of it that, can be predictable at times, but I still like it, Eric, especially in key moments. Let Leonard Moore be Leonard Moore and put him against the best receiver.
I like it. Against USC, then they went after Christian Gray, who was, in the USC game. And that was the game where Marcus let him know that if he didn't get it together, that they'd find a replacement for him.
Yeah.
It was kind of an inflection point for Christian Gray. I like having that option. I'd rather have somebody that's a really good nickel, and because everything else in that secondary is amazing.
Yeah. Eric, shift gears before we go into is it something or nothing segment. Tell us about the few days covering the Lou Holtz funeral and the interviews and what all you got to experience. I don't know if that's the right word. Like what all did you get to do? Like give us a peek behind the curtain here.
Yeah, it was really interesting, just kind of digging back into some of Lou Holtz's impact, the fact that, he thought at some point he was going to end up at Ohio State and almost did a couple of times. Had the opportunity to do that rather than Notre Dame. Just the amazing impact that he had on people, and that impact wasn't always sunshine and roses or whatever. I mean, like Ned Bolkar was a guy I interviewed, and when he was playing for Lou Holtz, there were times he was pretty disappointed with that relationship and didn't understand it. He got benched. He was a captain and got benched in 1988. Stonebreaker rose to the top of the depth chart. Mike Stonebreaker became an All-American. And then Ned had a 5th year, and he wasn't sure that he wanted to come back, but he said, I'm going to come beat him out. Then Stonebreaker gets suspended and has an injury in a car accident for 1999, and Ned becomes an All-American again in 1989. But just how Lou impacted Ned's life after that point, and how glad Ned is that he stayed and didn't walk away from Notre Dame and Lou Holtz forever. And one of the stories that I did was, Ned's 12-year-old daughter has leukemia, and Holtz wrote her a really encouraging note and said, hey, anything I can do to help. And, Holtz is kind of hanging on for dear life at that point anyways. I mean, he wasn't in great health and was just so supportive, and it meant the world to Ned Bolkar, and just some of the great stories. I mean, Steve Berline telling us the story about Lou going out there and fielding punts one day when the weather was really bad, and he was mad at Tim Brown and Alonzo Jefferson, and shatters his finger trying to catch a punt. And that was pretty funny. And then he said, I said, well, how did he affect you as a quarterback? He goes, I was a way better runner and better athlete than he gave me credit for. He used to tell people if Berline was in a race with a pregnant woman, he would finish 3rd. And so, but just that Lou Holtz's relationship with his players was complicated. It wasn't, we love Lou while we're playing for him. A lot of them didn't like Lou when they were playing for him, but they realized he was teaching them how to survive in life, and he was setting a standard, and this is the way he went about doing it. And then when they were on the other side of that, they could really appreciate it. And that's why the line for the visitation was, a mile long, and was, you couldn't get into the basilica if you weren't there early. And and fortunately people were able to watch that on a stream, and then
Right.
just what Skip had to say, and you can go back and see what he had to say in his eulogy. It was very touching about how giving Lou was. But again, tough son of a gun. I mean, that's for sure. And he wasn't going to compromise on that.
Popping up on the screen here in a second, part of video that Tyler Horka put on social media, if it will play. Were you at this part? Again, I just didn't really get to follow along everything that was going on. So, like, what all did you get to do, like, on the actual day of his funeral, Eric?
On the
Like,
day of his funeral, I went and interviewed players beforehand. Okay. Then I came back to write, and I watched it on streaming, just because my thought was there are people that have come from all over the country to be in the Basilica, and I felt like I'm not going to take somebody's seat where I could watch it on streaming, and it means something to them to be in the Basilica for this. So that was.
So is that something where media got the invite to, like,
the media did get an invite? You could RSVP, and then you had to go through some protocol to have your pass to get into the Basilica. I felt like that was not my place. I wanted to honor Lou, but I felt like I could do it watching the stream and doing the stories that I did better.
Of course. Very, very neat. And this is a great video I watched earlier from Horka with all of the people following the car there. So, all right, let's dive into our next segment. Is it something or nothing? And I do believe we have a couple other Lou related items, at least one. But all right, Eric, here's this from FanDuel. Highest regular season win totals. How about Notre Dame? Highest in the country at 11.5, tied with Texas Tech, Miami, Georgia, Indiana, Miami, Oregon, all at 10.5, and then Georgia, Ohio State, Penn State, and Texas, 9.5. So anything surprise you here on these over-unders for season win totals?
I don't know all what Texas Tech has coming back, but boy, they better have some offense if they're going to compete. And I know that they were very active in the transfer portal. I'm not surprised about. So I'll say something to this. I think where Notre Dame is picked, what people are talking about is the same thing I thought. I have not been this optimistic about, and again, now I need to see some spring practice and stuff, but I mean, going into spring practice, this is as optimistic as I've been about Notre Dame winning a national championship since maybe 90.
Yeah. What's so interesting to me about this, Eric, and I've mentioned this a few times, is yes, us in the Notre Dame community can be an echo chamber at times. Like we think that, right? But that national media is saying the same things. Like, so many people, I feel like, are picking Notre Dame to win the national championship or at least reach the national title game. And here's what Vegas thinks: 11.5, tied for highest in the country with Texas Tech. And Notre Dame, has some. I mean, the schedule at the bottom is not great, but you still play some pretty decent teams that could beat you. So,
and there will be surprises on the schedule. There always is.
Always.
Yeah. Good and bad. There's teams that will stink that you thought were going to be good, and there's teams that you weren't really concerned about that all of a sudden you go, oh, that could be a trap game.
Like, was it a couple years ago when Florida State was the only night game, and then they won 52-3? Was that the national championship appearance season, I think?
And Florida State was a preseason top 10 team.
Yeah. All right, here's something, Eric. PFF post-free agency mock draft. How about Jeremiah Love, number 2 to the Tennessee Titans? Is it something or is it nothing?
I think it's nothing. I think Jeremiah Love, in a lot of people's mind, minds is the number one prospect, but you still have to think about positional value. And I still think teams will trade up and do the quarterback thing or do a different position than running back. I still think in the top 10, but not that high. And not that he doesn't deserve it. I just think that's the way that, NFL teams think.
Right. Yeah. Like, I'm a Dolphins fan, right? Devon Achane, he wasn't drafted for, how was he drafted? I can't even remember. Like, you could, running backs you can find so easily, if that's the right term. So for Love to even be a shoe-in top 7 pick it's really speaking to his talents. He's a special player.
Right. I mean, he's a home run hitter. He can change the game with a play.
Yeah. Speaking of, this came across my Twitter page, the Rocket. So Eric, I was born in '93. A little bit of an infamous year for Notre Dame, much discussed year. So for folks in my age bracket that didn't get to watch Rocket, maybe just see highlights of him, and for you who obviously did get to see him, how special was Rocket? I feel like this is a kind of a great segue going from one electric running back to another.
It wasn't just his talent as the way that Lou Holtz used him. He could play wide receiver. He could play running back. He was a dynamic kick returner. He, again, another home run hitter. If you talk about the best players from the last 50 years at Notre Dame, I know Tim Brown won a Heisman. I'm not so sure Rocket isn't the number one player in that time span. He did not win a Heisman, and probably should have. But I think he's the most dynamic player that I've seen at Notre Dame in my time covering him.
Yeah. So are these clips something or nothing, sir?
They're way beyond something. They're amazing.
Yeah. Even though it looks like I took it on an old flip phone. Continuing along. Tweet from BetMGM. This is men's basketball related, Eric, which we never touch on this show, but I thought this was interesting. Every national championship since 1998 has come from the eastern half of the United States.
Huh. That's something, because when I was a little boy, they all came from one state and from one school, basically, and that was UCLA with John Wooden's dynasty. And then the one year that they didn't win during that it was called Texas Western, but it's called UTEP now. Don Haskins group in '66. That's interesting that, I think it's something. That's wow, because you got Arizona out there too. They've been a perennial strong program. There's been some strong teams in Texas. Houston was number 2 last year.
And Oregon's had good teams.
Yeah.
You touched on UCLA, obviously, Arizona. Something.
I mean, Oklahoma's had its runs at times. Kansas
is on there.
Oh, Kansas is they've split it into the east part.
I guess when I first saw this, I was like, really? Is that where Kansas is? My brain, I couldn't.
Yeah, Kansas, boy, they're cheating on that a little bit, I think.
Let me, where is that school at again? Where exactly in Kansas?
It's
Lawrence. No,
Lawrence. Yeah. Is it on the right side of their red line?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
It is like it borders Kansas City, Missouri.
Okay.
So it is. Yeah, I think that's
okay.
legit. And what about Waco? Yeah. So Waco's the farthest west. So yeah, that's something.
Okay, I'll say it's something.
How about this? The Indianapolis Colts signed Notre Dame basketball forward Carson Tal with the idea of converting him to tight end. So the Colts signed an undrafted free agent before the draft, Eric.
So
Gonzaga. Yeah, Gonzaga. That's another That's another good point on the
Yeah.
West Coast Powers.
Yeah, very much so.
Another
So,
men's basketball topic, Eric. How about that?
so I'm supposed to say if this is something or nothing.
I mean, it's certainly something.
I think it's interesting, so I would say it's something.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Um, there have been players that didn't play college football that played in the NFL.
There's a kicker from Notre Dame that was decent. Huh?
Right. But I mean, in general, they've been tight ends or a guy that might have played 1 year. Ohio State years ago had a basketball player that ended up playing tight end in the pros, and Gates was a guy, and there were some others. I don't know that it's going to turn into anything, but it's interesting. I think it's interesting that they did it before the draft, but him not being a college football player, I think that's certainly within the rules.
Right. Yeah.
So, and Brian Mason, the fact that he's their special teams coach, I think there may be more to it than just the Notre Dame connection. That if somebody's going to make something out of him, I know he's a special teams coach, but I could see him, maybe he's not a usable tight end right out of the chute, but he's a guy that helps them on special teams. So you wonder if that's part of what they're doing there. It'd be interesting to follow. I'm not holding out hope he'd be anything. I think the high end would be a practice squad player this first year.
Sure.
But it's interesting.
Yeah, what's the risk? And this is something that we had seen. I remember like a couple weeks ago to a month ago or so. It was like,
Right.
yeah, Carson Tal signed like a football agent, and we're like, oh, but now we know why. What are your thoughts on this, Eric? We and this show we will discuss more football recruiting as we get into the summer, but Notre Dame tweeted out 9 a.m. Yesterday, the future is golden with hashtag pot of gold day. Now, first pot of gold day was in 2021, I believe, and that would have been for the 2023 class. They offered 2 quarterbacks that day, Eric.
Right.
I think 2. I'm trying to remember if there was a couple others. Do you remember the 2 quarterbacks that Notre Dame offered on pot of gold day in 2021? Or I will say, do you know at least 2 of them?
Okay. Tyler Buckner.
Nope. So this would have been for the 2023 recruiting class.
Oh, 2023 recruiting class.
Yeah,
okay.
Buckner was committed in like 2019.
Okay. He was in the 2021 class.
Yeah.
So you're talking about 2023.
Yeah. So spring of 2021. So they offered guys for 23 class.
Dante Moore?
Yes. Ding, ding, ding.
And maybe Arnold?
No. Arnold was a little bit of a later bloomer.
And I probably have the year wrong. Vecino or whatever that guy's name was.
Vecino was in that class, but he was not a pot of gold offer.
Okay, I give up. I got one.
Arch Manning.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. I'm after this show, unless I just take this headset off and totally forget about this whole show we just had. I think I have the list of the pot of gold offers from that year. I think I still have it saved on my computer. Nico Iamavlava, I probably butchered that. He was originally on the list, but didn't end up, or he did later on, but he wasn't a pot of gold. And then there's one other quarterback. But anyways, okay. So Notre Dame started doing pot of gold in 2021, and they would offer several dozen sophomores going into their junior year. They did it last year, had great success. I think it was more than half of Notre Dame's class was a pot of gold offer. But they stopped it this year. They offered, I think, 4 or 5 players last year. But, I mean, in years past, it was every single recruit is tweeting out the pot of gold graphic. And you had up to 90, 95 players get an offer from Notre Dame all in one day. This year was 5. Notre Dame had a couple. And this is what I kind of predicted, Eric, and I had wrote about this a couple months ago at Blue and Gold. Like, hey, guys, go ahead and brace yourselves. Pot of gold is going to be different. It's not going to be this offer spree that we've seen in years past.
It's going to be a symbol of gold.
My expectation was they would throw out a few offers and then do a couple of social media posts and kind of call it a day. So is it something or nothing, in your opinion, that they've kind of backed off on this. And I wrote about this a lot, Eric. I don't know if you read those stories I did on them, but I think a big part of it was Chad Bowden and Mike Elston were, at least my understanding, kind of the architects of the original pot of gold. Those guys are long gone, right? Mike Elston went to Michigan and then the NFL. Chad Bowden's, of course, at USC. They had this vision for things, but in 5 years, college football recruiting has changed. Every year it's changing.
Right.
And Notre Dame offered a ton of 2028s 2 months ago when the coaches were on the road. They've offered 2029s. They've offered 2030s, Eric. That's like 8th graders or something. They're just, I think they want to accelerate and offer earlier, and they don't want kids to have to wait till March. They're offering more early. I remember last fall, kids were announcing pot of gold offers, and I'm like kind of confused, sorry, not pot of gold offers, just offers in general. I was kind of surprised, like, why aren't they waiting until March? Now we know why, Eric.
I think it's something, and what I mean by something is I think it's good that pot of gold isn't what it was under Mike Elston and Chad Bowden. I think recruiting has changed. And just talking with Tom Lemming as often as I do, his big critique is Notre Dame didn't offer enough guys early enough, that they needed to be not wait till March. They needed to have some of those offers out before that because other teams were getting a leg up on the relationship. And I think it's smart not to. I think it was great that all this was in social media, but you know what? Kids tweet out their offers whenever they are. And I think Notre Dame gets a lot more from starting those relationships early than it does from a bunch of Twitter graphics. What do you think? It's more your question.
Yeah.
Something or nothing, Mike Singer.
I don't know. Probably somewhere in between. Like, if Notre Dame did the pot of gold thing, I'd probably be on here praising it still. So it's like I'm kind of, speaking out of both sides of my mouth here. But I get it. I could live with it or without it. The one thing that they would do is say, hey, it could be in like November. Hey, you got an offer from us, announce it on Pot of Gold Day. And that was fine. They would kind of understand, and Notre Dame would explain it to them. But I think it just kind of maybe lost its flair, and kids didn't like waiting to post it. So it was a fun thing. You're Notre Dame, you're the Fighting Irish, own your built-in holiday. I get it, but I also kind of understand the other side. So to me, it's nothing and something. It's kind of a little bit of both. Does that make sense? Am I making sense, Eric?
Sure, I'll go along with that. Yeah, you somewhat made sense, and you didn't make sense.
Perfect.
That's split down the middle.
That's what I was going for. Here's a tweet from Holt Heroes Foundation's Lou's crew. You're gonna have to lean in and squint, Eric. Who are you seeing here? You got some absolute legends in this photo. I see my buddy Chris Zorich. I know.
It's too small for me to see on my screen, so I know who was there for the interviews.
Right. Sure, go ahead.
So, Steve Berline we talked to. I mentioned Ned Bolkar, Corny Southall, Mike Kovaleski. Trying to remember, there were about 7 guys that they brought into the room. Zorich, but there were tons of guys there, and you can see them all in the picture. And a lot of them I'm Facebook friends with a lot of former Notre Dame football players from that era, so I saw all their tweets. I know even like assistant coaches like Rick Minter came in. If you remember, Rick was an assistant under Charlie Weiss, but he was also a defensive coordinator under Lou Holtz for a couple years before he became a head coach. And it was an amazing collection of people. And the fact that, you could have Charlie Weiss and Brian Kelly 9 inches apart from each other. Brady Quinn, I know, was there. He wasn't a Holtz Heroes guy, but he was a guy that certainly had a connection with Lou Holtz after Lou's coaching time, and that Brady Quinn was sitting right next to Charlie at the service. So lots of that group is really, really special, and their connection and just how rejuvenated this group has been under Marcus Freeman. Yeah. Marcus had some great stuff to say about Lou today. I had seen other stuff. I thought he saved his best stuff for today.
Wow.
About the calls that he would get from Lou after every game. Every game he knew that a call was coming from Lou.
Yeah, pretty darn neat. A couple more items, Eric, before we close out today's show. Most popular women's college basketball teams, according to Nielsen, Notre Dame at 7, ahead of the Irish, Iowa, South Carolina, LSU, Tennessee, Texas, Connecticut. Based on the viewership we get on women's basketball, I would have certainly expected Notre Dame was in the top 10. So something or nothing here.
Something. I mean, it's a strong brand in women's basketball. There's tradition, and yet you have a generational player, which is hard to say given all the great players Notre Dame has had.
Yeah.
She was named All-American for a 3rd time, although the AP made her a 2nd teamer. That's nuts. But I mean, Hannah Hidalgo, I can't tell you. There are times when I see a play in sports and I go, "Are you effing kidding me?" And I can't tell you how many times she made me say that this year, but I said it G-rated version because of the people sitting next to me. But yeah, I think it's something. I mean, Notre Dame is a strong brand. And if they can, I did an intel piece about, are they going to go to the portal this year to add to their number 2 ranked recruiting class in the nation? If they can get Hannah and either KK Bransford or Cass Prosper to come back and add a center and a shooting guard or a combo guard to that lineup, that's a team that will move up on that list in terms of both being watched and being a team that really has a legitimate Final Four potential next year.
Those most popular women's college basketball teams based on social media and viewership. Last item, John Meredith. How about a 5-star plus cornerback? Do you know what a 5-star plus means, Mr. Hansen?
I don't. You will have to tell me what that means. What's the plus part to that?
It is a new streaming service. I'm just joking. It is. You are a consensus 5-star. You are a 5-star by every website. ESPN, Rivals, and 247. It used to be 4 websites before On3 purchased Rivals, but so first 5-star plus prospect that I can think of that's visited Notre Dame since On3 started kind of making it a term. I'm sure it's happened before, but in the past 5 years since On3's been around. How about that? He's visiting this weekend. Notre Dame cracked his top 6, and this is the number 2 overall player, the number 1 corner in the 27 class, making his first visit to South Bend. This is someone, Eric, that I wrote, Aaron Henry, when he got on the job, he's starting to work on John Meredith, and it's like, all right, good luck. And he's visiting this weekend, Eric, something or nothing.
Something. I think whether he signs with Notre Dame or not, to get a guy that caliber with a new cornerbacks coach says a lot about what Notre Dame has done in its development and how much confidence that they have that Aaron Henry's going to continue that development. And I'll tell you what, the guy has a personality. I mean, he really is interesting to talk to. And so if John Meredith can get a word in edgewise, that'll be good for him. Because Aaron likes to talk and he has a lot of interesting things to say. I will say that it's not hot air. I really, really enjoyed meeting him.
Yeah. Folks, please do hit the thumbs up on this video. Subscribe to the Blue and Gold YouTube channel for more content. That is going to do it for this week's Notre Dame football show. Rewind, watch in the beginning if you're just joining us live, and if you're watching back on YouTube or watching live, leave us a thumbs up on this video. And if you're listening to this as a podcast, please give us a 5-star review wherever you listen to your pods. And if there's a little section to type out why you're leaving us a 5-star review, please do that. That'd be very much appreciated. Go to blueandgold.com. So much more coverage on the site. Eric, you guys got a podcast tomorrow?
We do not this week. We're going every other week for now because we just.
Yeah, you guys have to do a lot of different guests and a lot of things going on. So our next show then will be Friday. I'm going to do like a part recruiting preview show, and then part I'm having Tyler James on to talk practice. We'll have another practice recap video. So lock into this YouTube channel. Of course, lock into blueandgold.com. New subscribers to blueandgold.com get 50% off the first year of their annual subscription. So go to blueandgold.com to check that out. Thank you so much for watching, folks, and we'll catch you next time.